So despite it being a launch title for the Nintendo Switch, up until recently I'd never actually played Fast RMX, but I've said it before and I'll say it again, I'm not big into racing games, which is clearly evident by the gameplay footage, and it's basically the excuse I'm using for this one. With everybody hyping over the release of Fast Fusion though, I figured it about time that I gave both of them a go to see just how far things have come. And so this video is going to be part critique, part graphical comparison, as while both games share similarities, I'd say that the overall racing experiences of them are very different, and so I'll be covering off the main differences between the two, whilst also showcasing the graphical improvements. And it's worth noting that if you've already played Fast RMX on the Switch, I highly recommend playing it again on the Nintendo Switch too, as there are some significant improvements to the visuals and performance that make the whole experience feel smoother and more responsive. But you can find my graphical comparison on the game linked below. So like I said, Fast RMX was a launch title for the Nintendo Switch way back in May of 2017, and now 8 years later on, Fast Fusion has arrived as a launch title for the Nintendo Switch too. Gameplay in RMX is very reminiscent of the classic Wipeout and F-Zero games, with its controls and mechanics kept simple to keep the focus on the racing as you turn around tracks at breakneck pace, avoiding obstacles and jumping gaps. His progression system is very much a complete the race in the top 3 to unlock the next one kind of affair, which I actually found relatively easy at the lower difficulties despite my terrible driving skills. Fast Fusion on the other hand is more of a modern take on the Wipeout F-Zero formula. His pacing is considerably slower both visually and gameplay wise, but it still retains that same element of speed to it. It's just not quite as fast and frantic, and I definitely felt more in control with this one when compared to Fast RMX. Despite me being able to race better though, the opponents in Fast Fusion are definitely much tougher, and right from the get-go there was an ongoing battle just to keep in the top 3, let alone make it into first place. But the added challenge was very welcome, and it made me feel like a much better driver when I was finally able to top them. Unlike Fast RMX though, progression in Fast Fusion is based around a currency system, and unlocking both levels and new vehicles involves you grinding out cash, which often requires you to replay previous cups. And although I preferred the RMX progression system, I have to admit that this new one does lend some added incentive and replayability to the game, as there is now also a new fusion system, hence the game's title, which allows you to fuse 2 vehicles together to create a new one with combined stats and looks, and this would no doubt make winning those races a whole lot easier, though you still have to race well enough to keep up. In terms of the racing mechanics though, whilst RMX keeps things simple, focusing predominantly on the racing, whilst adding in the boost mechanics as you snag boost tokens and switch between 2 colours to match them with similarly coloured boost pads, Fast Fusion takes things up a notch with the inclusion of a jump button, and this enables you to launch your vehicle up into the air to reach alternative routes or snag additional floating boost tokens. The jumps and boosts in Fast Fusion play an additional strategical role as well though, as boosting into an opponent sends them spinning, not only slowing them down, but also making them drop a few additional coins for you to cash in on, whilst jumping and landing on an opponent's head provides a more substantial sum of currency, and I appreciated the depth and tactical advantages that these new mechanics added to the gameplay. When it comes to the tracks, once again there have been some significant improvements here in my opinion. Tracks in Fast Fusion definitely felt more substantial, taking longer to race around, about 4 minutes compared to the 2 to 3 minutes offered by RMX. They have more complexity to the layouts with multiple alternative routes to take, and they've also been designed with line of sight in mind, so that you can better see ahead to identify tight corners and boost pads and are able to switch colours in time to hit them, whereas RMX often felt like it required you to memorise them. In terms of game modes, both games feature the multi-tiered championship mode, time attack modes and multiplayer for up to 4 players in split screen. But whilst Fast RMX offers online multiplayer for 2 to 8 players, Fusion has unfortunately taken a step back by removing the standard online multiplayer and instead limiting you to racing against one other friend via Nintendo's new game chat feature. Both games still have the hero mode though, or superhero mode as it's now known in Fast Fusion, which operates similar to F-Zero, with your boost bar now doubling as your health bar. And this mode is definitely aimed at players who are significantly more skilled at racing games than I am. Finally, let's talk about the visuals and audio, because while Fast Fusion definitely looks and some would argue sounds better than RMX, there have been a few cutbacks made to ensure it runs at a solid frame rate and retains the same breakneck pace that the series is known for. Now, RMX looked fantastic at the time of release, and with the upgrades that the Switch 2 has brought to it, there's definitely been some smoothing out of the jaggies, the textures look much sharper, and the resolution and frame rate bumps make the game look so much better and feel a lot more responsive while racing. Fusion also feels buttery smooth to play, but when it comes to the visuals, although there has been some huge improvements made to the texture resolutions and visual effects and the environments look better than ever, whilst in motion, it's clear that some heavy-handed use of the Switch's version of DLSS upscaling has been required to try to retain that visual fidelity. And unfortunately, it doesn't really achieve this a lot of the time, with image quality taking a pretty sharp knock. And I noticed this most on things like the trees and the boost pickups. When it comes to the audio though, it's pretty much win-win here, and both soundtracks sound phenomenal, with pumping electronic beats for you to race along to. But I'd say that for me, Fast Fusion just edges out in front with this one, with the soundtrack selections perfectly complementing each individual level, and I love the way that they transitioned into a different variant of the track as you come into the last lap, just to tease out a little more tension from the player. Overall though, whichever game you choose to play, you're guaranteed to have a great time with it. Both of them are great high-speed racers which offer a slightly different feel and some variety to the mechanics, but I'd say that if like me you haven't played either of them, then give each of them a go and see which you prefer, and if you've already played Fast RMX, then definitely revisit it if you now own a Switch too. That though is about it for this one. Hopefully that's given you a bit of an overview on the differences between the two games, and if you found it useful, be sure to drop a like and comment down below on which one you prefer and why. For now though, I'll leave you to enjoy the rest of this graphical showcase, so thanks for watching, and until next time, take care of yourselves and game on.